Falten. Du hast recht. Du hast recht. Du hast recht.
Hello everyone. How are you? Say hi in the chat. Oh, my camera's off. Hello everyone. It's great to see that some folks are already in the chat. Cool, cool. Oh, an update is available. Great. So, let's have a quick look at what we're doing today. So, as I hinted at last Friday, there is a issue I opened that you currently have to have a global playfab object auto-loaded. So you would need to, in order to use it in the project, in your game, you would need to go to project settings, project settings, and then auto-load, and then add an auto-load here, which you can see I don't have anymore. So this would be essentially just like a new, would do a new and instantiate this and have it in a global scope, and you would work with it in a global scope. I can show this here real quick. So this is how the global would look like. It would just literally just instantiate it and add it to as a child to the scene tree. And within the scene, I would access it in a global scope, like here, global playfab connect. So the issue with that is that it is global scope, and you don't really have control over it. You don't have the ability to use the UI, the editor UI, to connect to events that godot-playfab is exposing to you. So, and also it's kind of a weird thing. You don't really know when things are set. So because when you log in, you want to set up a session token that is carried over through every scene, and that would have been in this global thing as well, or on this instance of the playfab instance. So in this issue, I kind of described that that the playfab state could be deserialized from a resource, and then can be or serialized from and to a resource, and can be rehydrated on load of a scene with a playfab node that is attached to the scene. And this would remove the need for the playfab class to be a global autoload, and we could store the session ticket in there. So in fact, I've actually implemented this, but there are two challenges. So actually I've done two implementations of that, because while the resource worked pretty fine, it had the problem that there was no encryption, right? And when I'm working with a session ticket and I want to save this, it should really be encrypted. Otherwise, anyone who knows that you're using godot-playfab could look for the users directory, have a look into it, and and see what's going on. And that's not really what we want. So they could like steal this token and do things on behalf of this particular user. And so this is why it should be secured and encrypted. So maybe I should just show you the resource version, so you get an understanding. Or I just show you how it. Oh crap! So this is. So I'm in the midst of something. Maybe I should just commit this and revert back. So this is something I did actually on the last weekend and a few days in between. So this is not something that is related. This is all just debug stuff. Okay, just revert all of it. Yes, discard and discard, because we want to go back in time. Yeah, this is actually where we're gonna go. Did I go back here? But actually, sorry if you have to watch this. I just squash these two. Actually, I should probably reload the editor because sometimes this messes up things. Okay. Good. Let's restart Godot. Load this. Okay. So when I'm going to log in, so this we did last time, so this all works. Interesting. Okay, it doesn't work. Interesting. Okay, great. But now it should work. Doesn't it work now? Okay, this works. Good. So I might actually have the same problem than before, and I didn't realize it. Okay. So what are we doing here? Let's explain this real quick. So looking at Godot, we now have in playfab. Actually, I can show you the draft. This is even better, the draft pull request. I'll link this here so you can see the changes. Yeah, so changes. So to playfab. Right. So we now have, instead of the title ID, base URI, logged in, whatever, we have a playfab config that is being initialized in the init, in the constructor, and we check whether this resource exists in the config load path. That is actually the user directory here, app data for user. And if it does exist, we load this, and we set its title ID, because the title ID comes from actually the game that is using playfab, godot-playfab. And if it does not exist, we just create a new one that is empty. Then upon login, we set the session ticket and save the config, instead of prior having the session ticket as a variable on this playfab object, so as a field. That is about it. I mean, the rest is just small changes adapting to this. So this is how the playfab config implementation actually looks like. It implements a resource because that's what you need to do in order to create a custom resource, and give it a name and an icon. We define the config load path. So user on Windows is actually app data, and then it puts Godot and your project name at the end, and then actually this is then just a file name. So this expands to, in my case, local disks, user structured app data roaming Godot, app user data, and then we have Godot playfab, and then we have the playfab config tres. Tres stands for text resource, and if we looky into it, then that's how it looks. So Godot writes metadata in it. Effectively, this is an ini file format. And then we write some data into this. Okay. Yeah, so we have setters and getters here. Yeah. So the challenge with the resource here is, with using a resource, is that it is not capable of encrypting anything. And that is a problem, because, as I said, we want to be able to encrypt this, because otherwise anyone could go ahead and just parse this file, and it's not hard to guess this file, right? And pretty clearly states session ticket, and use that session ticket and do some malicious actions imposing this particular user. So we want this to be working and to be encrypted. So the thing is, when I remove this, it should still be working without a problem, right? So when I start, you can have this side by side actually, should be seeing this pop up. So when I log in, it should be creating this file, which it does. Okay, cool. And now we want to look into this. Yes. Reload, just in case. Okay, it's really there. Cool stuff. We can leave this here. So when I do a test request, it should actually work, but it doesn't. And that I didn't see. Player is not logged in. Because, and that is now challenging for me, because I thought it would have been working. Because what I did after implementing this, I changed this from using a resource to an encrypted config file. and that was a little bit different implementation, but I liked it actually a bit more, and it can actually encrypt this. So let's look at this, at the changes here. So also a limitation of resources is if you attach a debugger in here. I just showed this to you. I need to file a bug on this because that's super annoying. Where have I got it? Playfab config. So suppose I set a breakpoint here, and this will be called right upon logging in. What? Okay. Last time I used this, it threw an error, which is wild. Now I have. It's so funny. Now I'm doing this again, and I thought it was working properly, which it does not right now, and now putting a debugger breakpoint in here actually works, and last time it didn't. What happened? I don't know. I really don't know what happened. Funny. So okay, cool. Now I wanna reset back to here. Come on. Okay, that's. I actually don't know how to reset. Why is it not doing this here? God, I have to look up the command, do I? Don't tell anyone, but I'm gonna use Rider now. Because Rider has excellent tooling for this. And I'm not gonna look up commands now for Git. I like command line, but not for Git. Because it's complex and it's hard. It's easy to do things wrong. We don't want to do things wrong. By the way, there is an extension for Rider that allows you to get syntax highlighting and stuff for Godot, which is nice. I mean, it's not particularly great, as you can see, but it does the job. Okay. Git. See, and now I show you how easy this is. This is what we want to get rid of. We just want to reset here. Reset current branch to here. Hard. No. This is what we want. So in case there are any local changes. Or whatever. We do a hard reset now. Cool. So now, whoops, reload. This thing is, why is this still here? Interesting. Okay, playfab client config. This is the new thing. Okay, this didn't work either, but at least it can encrypt. Okay, login. Let's put this in here. Maybe some one of you can actually help me solve this. Why it is not encrypting? Why it is not doing what I want. So specifically, when I do this, it says, whoops, player is not logged in, and I don't know why. So there's probably an error on my side. Let's walk through it together. So yeah, let's walk through it real quick so we all see what is happening. So from the main scene We click register, we end up in the login scene. Here we input all the data, we click login, and on login clicked, on login pressed here, gets email password and sends a login with email request. And yes, so looking into playfab GD, on logged in, this will be triggered. So login with email will then set a function ref as a callback on login with email, which is this. It will convert this in a login result and emit a login logged in signal. I'm handling this in here, but you could do this on your own. Actually, I don't need this. I could do the same just down here, but whatever. I should probably do this at some point. So what I'm doing here is I set the session tick. I don't know what this line does here, but hey, why I need this? I don't need it. In fact, okay. So I set the session ticket from the login result to the playfab config and save the config. Now let's look at the config. So setting it, as we have a set get, set get, set session ticket, get session ticket. So setting it will write the value here. I'm thinking whether I should directly write this to the config file. Perhaps I just should, and instead I do save config here. So I'm setting it and then saving the config. I think it's probably best if you do the save at the same time. So essentially setting this here, and then we can also directly read it from there. Well, we'll see. So save config. Let's do it this way. I think, yeah, this is actually better. Okay, implicit saving. Let's try this out again. But yeah, you see, it should have saved this. Cool. By the way, I wanted to show you that this is actually encrypted. Here we go. Or whatever actually encrypted means in that case. We can have a look into this later. So I'm going to delete this. Let's start login test in worker. So it says player is not logged in because we're checking for it here. I'll do this in a second, but let's just see if it's there. Yes, it is there. So player is not logged in. Let's go through this part as well. So when I'm logged in, I'm in the logged in T scene. So this is what happens after login. I click the test request, and this spins up this on button pressed, and it just uses playfab and calls the client get title data. Oh, by the way, through my change, I just need to, because I don't have a global object, you just add a playfab object to here and it just works, right? You can then bind to the signals if you want. This is what I wanted to achieve with this ticket. Now, Okay, so client get title data, and as a response handler I want on get title data that essentially just prints it. Okay, so what happens on client get title data? Client get title data. So this does calls post with session auth. This is something I added some time ago, and post with session auth is getting the request body, the string for the path, the callback, so far so normal, and then additional headers. But it is also checking the playfab config if it is logged in. So this is where we failed earlier. So checking whether it's logged in means that we want to check if we have a session ticket. And that is what we do here. So is logged in should return true if the session ticket is not empty. So it's supposedly empty, so let's break here. Delete this again. Restart. So the session ticket is in fact really empty, which is weird, because maybe I should show you, because it is it will be set, and yeah, it's actually there before. I can show you that. And I really don't know where it gets lost. And maybe someone from my viewers may help me understand why it's gone. So here we're gonna save it. So the value is actually the session ticket. And we set this to the config. So looking at the config, can I not view this because it's encrypted or what? Okay, whatever. So we write this. So here we go, on logged in, we write this. Okay, so we have all this stuff, and we can see here that we actually have the session ticket, so it's all good. So now when I test request, let's see if it's there. I'm not sure, I cannot check it here. I need to look into the playfab object, because I don't think I'm exposing this, exporting this. No, I don't. Okay, so let's break here so I can go into this. So here we go. So here we should have the playfab config, and the playfab config actually tells me that there is a session ticket. And if I go into here, we do have a session ticket. Oh yeah, because now we have it, because the file exists. Haha. This works. Okay, good. Sorry about that. We need to delete the file. I forgot about this. Okay. So we have the session ticket. Yeah, we save it. It's all good. Cool stuff. The file exists. Now let's test the request. Step into this, step into that. So looking at the playfab config, where is it? There we go. Playfab config does not have a session ticket. Interesting. So this means this is not properly loaded. Why is this not properly loaded? Probably because I have, oops, actually, I don't know. So when looking at the different scenes, so we have the login scene. This has a playfab object, and the logged in scene has its own playfab object. This logged in scene is actually a child here of the login scene. But anyways, it should. Those are individual ones. Those are individual objects, and it should just work, right? It's maybe not the most resource efficient thing, but I really don't care, right? Because this is a very, very small part of that, of what you're doing in your game. So what I'm thinking is that by switching to the scene, or by loading the scene and then using this playfab object, that it does not in fact read the resource properly on change, right? Or it thinks it has it, I don't know, because the strange thing is really that when it's already existing and I launch the application, then it does work on the logged in scene. So this is the weirdest part. But it does not work when I create the file during the run. So yeah, interesting problem. And I think it's really super simple, and I'm just missing something very, very basic right now. But that's the programmer's life, isn't it? I should. So so let's look at the loading. When are we loading it? We're loading it here on the init. Okay. So we're loading in on the init. If it so we are always creating a new on the init, creating a new playfab client config. Okay. So this means on init we set the title ID and actually load the config. So the config is in contrast to the resource is a child here. So we load this. And loading means that we create a new config file. loaded from the file, and if it cannot be loaded, then we throw an error. Otherwise, we get the value of the session ticket. So now let's see where this load config is actually getting triggered. Okay, so at the very beginning. Oh, I should delete this file. And we also, yep, no. So at the very beginning, we are loading it, and the error is 7, so file does not exist. If I get it right, hello, please open the help. Global, okay, but 7 is file not found. Cool stuff. This is what we expect. Client config. So we would be entering the if here, right? Cool stuff. Good. So we now, we now have a config object that has nothing in it. Okay, wonderful. This is what we want. And ready. So that's where we initialize everything. So initial load is done. Now we click login. And here we go. The loading. Actually, I could break here instead. So error is again 7. So the file does not exist. And again. Okay, so this time we're setting the session ticket. So config is actually an object, and we have set the session ticket. So now I think it's the interesting part, and I think this is where it gets reset. Yeah, so I think we just saw it. Set session ticket was unlocked in. So on the scene switch, there was no init anymore. So what we're seeing is, because it is, now I know. Okay, we see this being called twice at startup, right? So it started once here, so this is actually the init of the one scene, the main scene, right? So we click login, it loads it, tries loading it another time. And another time, why is it on? Oh yeah, exactly. So we deferred go to scene. Now I have to reset, sorry I messed it up, because I didn't show what I wanted to show you. So, first time, that's okay, once. So once we click login, what happens is that it loads the login scene, and because logged in scene is a child of login, it will load it as well. So the first one is the login main scene, so to say, and the second time this is being loaded, is because of in login scene is a logged in scene, and that has its own playfab object. And it will load it right away, but at this point in time, we don't have a session token, right? A session ticket. So once we click log in, we're setting this, and we're setting this on the resource, and everything is fine. The thing is that now those two are separate. So this one does not have it, does not have the config because it doesn't get reloaded after it was reset, but this one will have it, right? And I think we can even introspect this. Let's export this playfab. Oh, it is incredibly helpful to do some rubber ducking on stream, basically, because by explaining it to you, I'm explaining it in maybe more simpler terms to myself, and that helps me quite a bit. Export resource. So this is a problem, by the way, export resource. Isn't that how you do that? So you see the problem, right? If I do export this is not working. And my friend Deepstream is fixing this for us. I don't know if you've seen this, but where is it? Oh crap. Yeah, well, you gotta find this out. I linked it here in the stream last time. I forgot about it. But essentially what he's doing, he's allowing us to export custom resources. Yay. So I think this should just work fine. Login. So here, if we inspect down, we should be able to see this. Doesn't export this. Why is that? Interesting. Well, I think you can also see this on different object IDs. So anyways, what we need to do is we need to reload this. So basically whenever I don't know what the best way of doing this is. But we could try it here. Can you call an init function again? No script. just call node config. Let's try this. Just for the sake of making sure this works. Yeah, just for the sake of making this, see if this works. Playfab. We have to delete. Oh, we have a session ticket now. Yay! Okay, solve this. Now we just make this less brittle as it is right now. So, welcome everyone who is new to the stream. I'll do an intro real quick on what this is, what we're doing here, if you don't know what the status is. But let me think about how to make this less brittle. Because that's what I really want, is that a developer who wants to use godot-playfab doesn't have to think about stuff. I just want people to throw in as many playfab nodes as they want and don't have to deal with authentication callbacks or any nitty-gritty details. Because I want you to be making games and not deal with an SDK. And I'm sure pretty much everyone is with me on that, right? And that is also the reason why I'm building this, right? You could use the playfab SDK and the C# SDK, but it's just an API wrapper, right? It doesn't help you a lot, right? It's just a wrapper around the JSON API, and I want to do a little bit more than that and make it feel native to Godot. All right. So to the logged in thing. So reloading the config. I don't constantly want to reload the config. And now that I have different instances that all depend on this effectively global state. Ah, this is so crappy. Sometimes I think I should have left it with the global state. It might have been better. Because it's a lot less trouble to implement with it. I mean, you have to do one step ahead. Not sure. I'd love to get some input from the community here. So, maybe quickly, For everyone who is new here or needs a refresher, what I'm working on here, I am working on a Godot extension or Godot integration for playfab. And playfab is a Microsoft backend as a service for games. It is free up to 100,000 players, and it can do a couple of things, right? It can store your, you can do your logins here. Can do a login here, and manage your players. Each player can have inventories, can have purchases, because you can also tie into the platform stores like Google Play, Apple Store, and stuff like that. You can assign them virtual currency, inventory, as I said. You can give like balancing data to them, and you can also put files and arbitrary objects to them. You can put them in groups. You can assign characters, and you can put them into segments. So you can like treat your core players differently, right? Or you can make experiments with those segments, right? And that's pretty powerful. And there's a couple of multiplayer services like multiplayer servers or a party for peer-to-peer. There's automation where you can like hook up Azure functions. So this is an Azure serverless product where you can write C# code, for example, and only pay per request, so to say. So which is super cheap. And there's economy, so you can build stores in it. You can build leaderboards with it, arguably simple leaderboards. You can add like content, like you can add player mods, right? And there is also the ability to have like global balancing variables. This is what I showed with get title data that pulls this data. And then there's data analytics, right? Because every action that you do with the playfab API kind of gets a telemetry event that you can use then to react upon or just like analyze. And that is super powerful because you can also do anonymous logins. If you just want to track what kind of features people are using, then this is super powerful. By the way, full disclosure, in my day job, I work for Microsoft and playfab and Azure, right? So my day job is actual technical, not support, but I'm a kind of a, because I'm a game industry veteran myself, and I do a lot of game development in my spare time, and so I help larger game studios actually build games on and with Azure and playfab, right? So I deal usually with the larger game studios day to day, so that's why I'm engaging in the industry, because that's a lot more fun. All right. So with godot-playfab, I want to make something different than the C# SDK, because to be very honest, I think this is it is a good solution to whatever you want to build with it, right? But it's not a specific integration to anything. For example, the Unity plugin for it's kind of great, right? Or the Unreal plugin for playfab, right? Because they are using the engine editor to integrate with playfab, right? And Godot does not have such an integration, and it's a much smaller engine, so this is why big Microsoft is not investing in it at this point in time. I think this is my personal view on that. It's not a Microsoft position, by the way. So I'm building this because Godot has some kind of unique features which I very much like the node system and with it the signals that you can have, right? I think this is very straightforward to use for developers, And that's why I want to be able to use these, right? And it's easy to build integrations here. So I also want to use this playfab button up here to be able to kind of interface as a game developer with the playfab platform, right? So you could, for example, upload new store configurations or new title data or whatever, right? Or new email templates. I don't know, or view some basic telemetry there. And so this is where I would love to get input from you who are watching and others from the community. Please do create issues here on GitHub. I'll post this in the chat as well. I would very, very much appreciate your involvement and you telling me what you would like to see in godot-playfab. And the more that I'm engaging, the more reason I have to work on this, and probably also the more work time I can, actual day job work time I can invest in this. Yeah. So, in 2 words, I want to have a GD script, 2 sentences, a GD script native SDK and a Godot integration to administer your game. These are my goals for godot-playfab. Alright, let's carry on. What this is by the way, a model generator that I built. Very simple one, very brittle one to be honest. Is also documented down here in the maintainer documentation. This is just if you want to build new models for new requests. Okay, but let's carry on and fix the current issue. I'm really missing your involvement in the chat, so please type something if you want. And by the way, Plichkovsky, thank you for the follow. Do I by chance know you from... Oh, that's Pavel, it's still you. I think you follow me on Twitter. By the way, if you want to follow me. Yeah. Hey Pavel. So for everyone who wants to follow me on Twitter, here am I. Yeah, that's who you thought you were. Trying to build a turn-based PvP multiplayer game using Godot and playfab. So that's all very interesting to me. Oh, that's great. Good to hear. So yeah, that's kind of why I started building that, because I'm more or less doing the same. So I'm actually with my brother, I wanted to like just do something in Godot, right? And we didn't have a proper game idea and we wanted to learn Godot, and we started kind of like making a PC or adaptation, a video game adaptation of the board game Alhambra. I don't know if anyone knows Alhambra. Pretty nice board game, and we figured it's pretty easy to implement it, right? Or at least it's good to learn a game engine, right? And we got quite far, quite fast, but I wanted to also have multiplayer implemented, right? And so paste the link here, by the way, if someone wants to check it out. But I also wanted to have multiplayer, right, over the network. It's great to play board games with your friends, and in the pandemic, you could play this online as well, right? I'm pretty sure there is a digital version of that, but it was for my own fun, right? So we decided to implement this. And for multiplayer, I wanted to do this with playfab as well. So player login and then basically turn validation and everything on the server side with Azure functions that are tied in to playfab. So also you can obviously ask me anything on playfab here. happy to answer. Cool, good. Where was I? So, Pavel, anyone else? I would love for you to chime in on the decision making here. So, I have a scene and a subscene, and both of them have a playfab object. I want to have a the session token be kind of globally available, so I can use it everywhere. But I don't want to have a global, a global scope playfab object, because otherwise I could not use the UI to like connect signals, and I kind of wanted this all along. And so I just want game developers to be able to plug a playfab instance in and go with it and just connect stuff up. But this also means that this session token needs to be globally available at some point. So I was using a resource earlier, but then a config file to be able to encrypt it. But now I have the issue that I have to reload the config file every now and then on all the instances that are currently loaded. And I'm not sure how to do this really. Or do this efficiently, because you don't want to reload this permanently. I'm just thinking this reading files, particularly encrypted files, is expensive. So I'm sorry for clicking about here. I'm trying to find the script and I'm still not used that this is not a multi-window application. Very much looking forward to Godot 4 to finally be multi-window. And also to the GD script changes, because that would make things sometimes easier. Okay, so I am thinking now that we could kind of, when we load the config and it's not actually there, then we know it's not loaded, so we can set a flag. Or we don't actually initialize it properly, or we null it back. This is interesting. Is there no static for that? Load encrypted path? Because I don't. Can I not just check if this file is loadable on initialize? What is parse? Okay, no. Good. Does reference have an update? I don't think so, right? When and how to avoid using nodes for everything. But this is the point, I should maybe use a node here. And the lobby servers and servers that run the games, place transferred between them, and how to transfer players between servers in Godot. Let me finish this and then I'll get back to this, yeah? And maybe a question back right away. Are you generally thinking about dedicated servers? I want an update loop actually, or maybe not. Let's see, so on the config, so we want to see if it's loaded. No. And then actually here, if the error is not okay, we null this config, so it's easier for us. Okay. Knuckle. Did I miss that? No. I think it's good. So good. So now we have to check when we access value if it's loaded. Oh man, I would love to have like a general, either an update. If I just make this a node, I'm just thinking about making it a node because then it would have an update method. I could just check this. What would be the implications of making this a node? I'm just making it. I don't care anymore. It's just insane. Don't think about this anymore. We can always make this better later. Don't get too hung up on one specific problem. And that's what I'm doing here. Oh god, what is, no, it's not update. Is it? Is it? Interface, process, ready. Process. Process. It's Unity's update. Why? I worked professionally with Unity for a couple of years, and that's why it's so burnt into my mind to have this update. I actually don't like Unity. That's the fun part about it. Delta, we're not using the delta, so that's why we underscore it. That ignores it, supposedly only in function parameters. If is initialized, What is wrong? Why is this not working? Is update not being called or what? What? Why is there no file? Ah! But it just called. You are kidding me, aren't you? Yeah. Oh. Ah, it's null now. Okay. Map. Okay, I need to save this first. Okay. Okay. I know what I'm doing wrong, so before you wait anymore, I'll go ahead and talk about the question I got in the chat from Pavel. When you have a moment, I would love to know how the backend of a game such as Magic the Gathering Arena is structured. Are there lobby servers and servers that run the games? Are players transferred between them? And how to transfer players between servers in Godot? Also languages used and why? Dedicated servers, no peer-to-peer. I don't think that they run dedicated servers at all. I obviously cannot talk about the actual customers, but and what they do, but when you think about what is necessary to run a Magic the Gathering game, and maybe for a turn-based game like yours, right? May I ask you if your game is asynchronous? And how the players play, or is it synchronous? That sometimes makes a difference, but generally you do not need a game server at all unless it's real time. And because think about Magic the Gathering. So when I have a couple of cards in my hand, right? So when a player turn starts, the player draws a card. So that can be done as a web request to a web API, right? You draw a card. So the backend randomly selects one card from your stack that you're supposed to have, returns that card to you. So the server is a web API that has authority over which cards you get, right? The client is just a representation of it. Then you look at your non-authoritative hand of cards on your client, pick one, and you basically just tell the server that you want to play, I don't know, a Black Lotus, right? But you're actually just sending a command, play card, and then an ID, the ID of a Black Lotus, right? It's ID 1 because it's the best card ever. And then the server validates whether you have a Black Lotus on your hand, because the server keeps track of your hand cards, and then it commits this action to essentially to what is the game state, right? And the game state can either be like a fixed object, right, that you constantly update, or it should be, and then you can have actually a queue of influx commands, right? So I think a Magic the Gathering it would be a waste of resources to have a dedicated server. Ah, so you're asking what a dedicated server is. Okay. So I think a dedicated server, when you talk about this in the games industry, people will understand this as a virtual machine running essentially a headless version of your game, right? So in real time, it has real-time processing. So if you think about this Godot application, it would just not render anything, but it would essentially run the same thing or parts of the same logic constantly, right? So this is necessary when you have physics simulation, for example. Then you need to have essentially the same game running on the server on a VM. So does this answer your question? And you said you did successfully use playfab already through. Yeah, but the game state, if you the thing is, you don't need a running application. So there's a difference between a running application on a VM and an abstracted away web server, right? I mean, it is technically also an application, but it does not have to run all the time. You know what I mean? So when you look at cloud processing, for example, what serverless frameworks are doing, they're essentially I need to let me switch real quick. Give me a second, I'll be right back. I just want to start an application. I don't want to share sensitive information of my customers. So, I just want to draw something. Okay, got it. So a serverless framework is essentially a serverless framework is essentially a Nginx or whatever it is, a proxy, a reverse proxy that takes requests from clients and based on some headers and request parameters then forwards this to an application, right? That can be a web server or a web app. And so it actually spins up. This tells this web application to spin up and handle the request. This is essentially what happens, right? Or they have a cloud provider like Microsoft has many of those machines running, right? And they just spin up, literally just spin up an application of your web server whenever it's needed, right? And maybe let it running for some time to be readily available. So you don't have to have a running application all the time on a VM, and that's just waste of money. And when you say you set up a server on Google Cloud, do you mean an actual VM? And for languages used in the backend, if you're not using essentially the game client as a server version, then you can use whatever language you want, right? And it's usually the best to use the same language that you use in a front end, so to say, or in the client, unless it has less performance in terms of implementation, right? So actually most people I see use C# in the backend because it's ubiquitous. It runs on all platforms. If it's a Mac, if it's Linux, it's Windows, right? So developers can work on their local platform, whatever they're running on. So I'm running on Windows, but I want to run my actual backend application to run on Linux because it's cheaper. .NET is a great platform because I can compile locally or in GitHub or wherever and deploy to wherever I want. I don't have to care about the platform. It's a great language with C#. Is a good productive language, and some people actually do use C++ in the backend, but I would really not recommend unless you have physics simulation. Some people use JavaScript because it's also very productive, but it's less safe, obviously. There's a variety of languages to use. TypeScript is also kind of popular, but I think in a triple A games industry, it's mostly C#. Also, I would encourage you to not use a VM, right? Use a serverless framework. Google has its own, but if you're using Playfab, why not go for Azure, right? It's literally just cents. I'm sure you're paying a couple of euros or zloty in your case, maybe, I don't know, for your VM all the time, right? And you have to shut it down when you're not using it. And that actually, when you release a game, is a problem, right? Because you have constant cost no matter what the player numbers are. And with a serverless framework, you can run web applications and don't pay a penny when you're not using it, right? And you don't have to shut down anything. Okay. Let's carry on with what we're doing here. So we need to actually set a flag here if it's loaded, which I don't like at all. Initialized. Well, you could. I was actually thinking about using Godot in Azure Functions because you can use Docker containers and you could put into that whatever you want. And yeah, and that's quite a bit. So you don't want to re-implement this in C#, I assume. Yeah. I still, it's maybe work, but thinking about this, I think it would be beneficial to kind of do this not on a real-time VM. It's, in my opinion, it's waste of resources. But when you're doing Azure Functions with Godot, you essentially need an HTTP server that is accepting HTTP requests. There is a Godot project that actually our friend Deepstream has built one, I guess. So you could get commands here, but then you also have to have this running, right? So I don't know. Yeah, I think I saw something that does HTTP. You gotta check this out for yourself. So let's get going here. Bool initialize false. Oh. Also, as you can see, I'm a C# guy. It's clear that it's a boolean. We don't need this, actually. We don't need this. True. Good. I think this should do. Ah, is the file here now? Bam. Still not. What am I doing wrong here? Why is this not being updated? That's not part of the tree. Fuck me. It's not part of the scene tree. It's not part of the scene tree. But it's also not being saved. Now that's the main problem. Why is it not being saved? Oh, because we don't. Well. Yes, it's working. Goes off. Good. Now let's check if we actually need this to be part of the scene tree. Maybe not. But I think to be able to leverage the update, I think we have to. No, we don't. Because it's a child already. Okay, awesome. Cool, cool, cool. I think we got this settled. Yes. Let's commit this. Okay, we don't want this to be exported actually. Oh, come on. Why? What? What's wrong here? Why can I not discard this? What is wrong here? Okay, then I'm manually changing it. Why is that possible? Okay. Ah, I forgot to remove this line. I hope it still works. Ah, crap. Nope. Okay, so I have to probably do the add chant here. Come on. Okay, here we go. Okay. Why is update not being run? Oh, because I am stupid. Oh no shit. Hallelujah. Hey Twogan! Good to see you again, friend. Finally off work. You're always right just before the break, because I need to do a break in a minute. I already spent 2 hours on this. Ah. Yeah. Partially my stupidity. I don't like the solution that much, but yeah, here we go. It's what it is right now. But I think this is the least intrusive for folks to be using this. I'm great, I'm great. I hope you're too. Oh yeah. So, good, let's commit this. Oh, actually, I just realized something. This is only necessary. What is this emoji? The end to Kiana? What? I don't understand this. Okay, whatever. Wespe. From Hausmore. That's so good. So let's push this for now. Okay, let's do a 10 minutes break. We'll be back in... Oh, is that 10 minutes? That's 3:15 p.m. in Central Europe time. I do my classic I should just save this because I'm reusing this all the time. Isn't that beautiful? This is real program art. See you in 10 minutes. Oh, this is weird. My monitor turned off. It just went to the other screen, which is weird. So, okay. I can't actually get this back to the other one. Oh my god. Yeah. Ah, now it's fixed. What the fuck? So, yeah. That's not cool if you... the Streamlabs just switches to another screen if the one is turned off. I need to blank out my screen again real quick. It's messed up. There we go. Well, here we go. Learning as we go. Now someone, so we kind of need to do the pull request now. Someone showed today on Twitter I saw like a browser mode on the side, but I don't have that, and I don't know why. Ah, feature preview. Come on, pull that. Pull request file tree. Yes, I want to have this. This is so cool. Look at this. Do you need to refresh? Yes. This is game changing. Also, more space. Yay. This is awesome. This is really awesome. Love this. Okay. So, twice the power at least, you say? Okay. Good lord, I don't even know how to do that. I turn it up all the way. And it's in the green. Yeah, for me in the recording it was fine too. And it's in the... when I talk it's in the green bar, basically in the green area, and it occasionally goes into the yellow one, so this should be fine. I mean, I could definitely use a better microphone. But, yeah. I'm gonna watch the recording afterwards and see. Yeah. That's what I thought. Green sounds good. Alrighty. So, doing a self-code review. Oh, by the way, there's probably some improvement here to be done, because really the only thing we need this for is when the session ticket is not set, so we don't really need to check this all the time. But oh yes, that's what I'm gonna do. I think when this check is failing, I'm just reloading it. Because otherwise this will constantly try to reload this. So basically, if it's not logged in, then we reload it. And this bollocks, we don't need both. Actually, we need this more. Well, let's see in the playfab GD. Post with session out. Not look. I mean, whatever, semantics. Is logged in. Just, I think this is what people rather do. So, is logged in. If not initialized. So we try reloading it, and if that fails, then we're returning empty. I think that's probably fair. Let's see if this works. Oh, we don't want this. Much better. Much better. Good. This also means I can make this a reference again. And I don't have to add it as a child to the tree. Right? Right. That's right. Great. Much better. So I want to share the link that I mentioned earlier, by the way. Oh, I'll do this later. On the pull request for custom resources. First, let's finish our thing here. And so making it better commit messages. So push down. Good. Now let's look at the pull request. I updated. Oh yeah, I updated the README also to talk about the signals that you can connect on. So I should add something here saying that you don't actually need to connect this. Oh. No, this is not true. Well, I'll leave it here. I need to follow up on this at some later point because there is actually a problem with this. Yeah, I actually talked briefly about this before it because on login with email is emitting logged in. We are logged in and we have an unlogged in, which is not good. I should do this down here because I don't. No, I need to have this because we will be having different multiple login mechanisms. See, don't put something into another pull request because you never know. We have to think about it first. So I think the README is fine. So this looks good as well. We just changed to the local instance, not global. Yeah, that obviously is fine too. So the login scene, we just made this simpler because we now do the connects in the scene actually, which is kind of nice here. PI error and logged in. And I actually want to show this because that's, yeah, sometimes code is nice, but I mean, code is sometimes easier to read, right? You know which signals are connected, right, on that. But it also shows you how things are connected in the UI. So I actually like this more as a game developer, I think. Not necessarily as a programmer. So we do the same here with the connects of the signals. API error register. The global GD we deleted because we don't need it anymore. Playfab GD fixed a few typos and stuff and removed the signal we don't need. And this should be not playfab config, but playfab client config. Oh, come on. What is replace? Search and replace. Control R. It's not like I did this a ton of times. Playfab client. Match case. Oh, words. This is really a problem. I don't even see where I'm replacing. Well, I just do it and then check it out what that is. Seems good. It does seem good. Let's test it. want to remove this. Yay. Good. Refresh this. So yeah, the fixes here are good. This change is good as well. Oh. I need to do another change. This should be underscored. Yeah, so this is another thing. I don't want to have an assert here, but push a push arrow instead. There's some additional white space and be able to. What is that? Ah, I removed this. Okay. Looking good. Oh, the playfab config. Yeah. I think I can remove this. I don't think this is used anywhere. What did I do? I don't want to replace it. I want to find it. It's just here. Okay. Get rid of it. Look good. Oh, too bad. Can't. But I can make this an actual pull request. How do I do this? Okay. Shall we? Let's just do this. Does it? Oh, I need to do unit tests. Okay, I think I achieved my goals here. I guess it fixes down there. Session ticket. Oh, and still need to look into this, into the using. Huh. This is not. Yeah, it does create playfab config CFG, but it should really create a playfab client. Config trace. Okay. Oh. This kind. This is the file we wanna save. Oh, fuck you. I didn't copy this. And, do I have to rewrite this? This is annoying. GitHub. Just merging. I don't care that much anymore. I just want to get on and don't want to bore you. Okay, there's a new question. In theory, it should be possible to convert my Godot node-based server into C# Azure serverless setup at some point. Yes, I mean, you have to rewrite it. I'm sorry about that. I mean, if you did write it in C#, you're halfway there, I think, but no, I don't think you need nodes at all, right? And I'm curious why you decided to write it that way in your current implementation. Because it's essentially just background checks, aren't they? Yeah, sure. It's perfect for prototyping, but the thing is that the game logic is not there, right? So I would always decouple the node and the logic that it has. I might be able to show this to you in my other project, in my card game, Alcaramba. That's the Alhambra reimplementation. So we have drawables, like a card, right? Then we have a title card and a money card. These are the scenes for it, but they extend in this case. It's a texture button. The title card is also a texture button. Oh yeah, hand drawable. So these represent the cards that you see, right? So, but we have for each card, so we actually have code behind, so to say, right? So we have a tile card that we actually use that implements all the code that is there, and it is an abstract. It extends abstract card. An abstract card is an object, right? Or could also probably be a reference. It's not a node, and we attach this essentially to the node, to the actual node. Here, so card info is a money card. So the nodes on the server are logic only, but why are they nodes then? I don't understand. But you can have a tree structure without a node. I have this here. I have a money card collection that is essentially a stack that has a bunch of money cards in it. And I can take a card from it. And those can have sub-resources themselves. Just saying, I don't think this is necessary though, to be nodes. Oops. Pull. Good. Okay, what did we do? Oh, the stream agenda said something about an anonymous login. That's funny because I should have created a ticket for it, or an issue, but I didn't. And I should rather have said we should be working on this one, because I really need a test suite. But anyways, I said we're gonna do anonymous login, so we're gonna do anonymous login. Do we have any new people in the chat? No. I'm sorry, I'm eating chocolate on the side. I need some energy. So, anonymous login. So anonymous login is important because it allows you to enable players to just start playing. And this in turn is important because if you bother players with a login and with registration or whatever, they're gonna churn maybe, right? Or the likelihood of them churning is higher. This is what I think every one of you has experienced, very likely, in their gamer career. And the data says the same, right? If I wanna play specifically true on mobile, right? If I just download a casual game and I want to start playing, right? Because I have like 10 minutes. I don't want to mess around 5 minutes with any login bullshit or registration bullshit. So we need a anonymous login for that. Another reason is that in some countries like the European Union, there's strong data protection laws in place, right? And the less data you collect, the easier it is for you to get them to accept or to get yourself as a company or as a game publisher or game developer on the safe side of the law, right? So you just don't want to collect personal identifiable data like an email address if at all possible, right? So use either an anonymous login or a platform login. And as you can see, there's quite a few login options available for different platforms. And login with custom ID is essentially an anonymous login, which you can then later kind of use to or upgrade, so to say, and add a secret to it, right? Because with this you can just log them in and that's it. You have no means basically to to provide a password directly. You would have to later set a player secret. Great. That's what we gotta do. So I won't bother you with creating a ticket thing. We'll just try and do this as quick as possible. I'm gonna close the other project so I don't get confused, because you have seen me getting confused. What did I do now? I'm gonna close this anyways because I switched projects basically and it's gonna break, I think. Good. Okay. So let's start with this. Register with custom ID. And we're just gonna take this. These are parameters you can tell. So basically with this you can tell the API what it should return in the response. So now we want to have a request body, and this is gonna be a model. And I think that might actually be the same as user registration client. Good lord. Register playfab user. So I think maybe we can really go quickly through the best practices here for authentication. I think this here shows the I thought there was a best practice page for this. Oh yeah. So, unless you know exactly what you want, log in with custom IDs, your release title. With custom ID. See? So this is the important part, right? They require 0 input from the player, so there is no friction to the first time user experience, and the result is a unique account in playfab for each player. This is the most common login mechanism. And that's why we do this. So I think this we can just like log in, right? There's no registering actually, and that's why this is actually false. Or about login with custom ID. And we move this down here, I think. Pass for now. So, and for this we need a request model, and here I can show you this. So I have all the models in here. So we paste in this table without the headers into this. You can leave this here or remove it. It will not parse it properly. So I'm just going to remove it and just copy this here. And now I can save direct and look here. There we go. Login with custom ID request. See how cool this is? Oh, I need to fix this. Actually, this should be a dictionary. There's still some things going wrong. If I would have some custom types, I would need to implement them here, but I don't have. So, here we have get player combined info request params. I need to set this up here properly. Otherwise, the deserialization will, or the serialization will not properly. Oops. Will not properly work. This is a limitation by Godot because there is no introspection API on GD script yet, so no reflection possible, and I haven't wasted time on reparsing the script, so I just hardcode this here for now. It shouldn't be too much effort. So we have this model. So now we can go back here and actually use it. Var request param login custom ID request new, and we set the request params. Title ID. I wonder what happens if I set this to false. Oh. Let's see what happens. I don't think we need to set this. It will be created itself. It'd be nice if I could use this in non-request, but hey, that's it. Okay, that's it. That's all we have to do. Now we actually have to just copy this because we're lazy. Custom ID. Let's maybe check. On login with custom ID. So this is the handler for this. So the result will always be a dictionary, and here we're gonna parse it then, right? Just like this. So we pass here because we still need to do the response, which is a login result, which we already have. So we can just do this. Actually, we can just do this. Because it's literally the same. We shall change the login scene and add a button that allows for anonymous login. So we copy this over as well. This and playfab.login with custom ID, and we just do the combined request params. That should really be it. Okay, yeah, this makes sense to me, probably. The visualization of using nodes. So this is one thing I really like in Unreal is the visual programming thing, the blueprinting. This would be great if we could have something like that in Godot. And if you like, you could kind of render this to actual code, to C# or GD script code. That would be so cool. But that requires very good programmers, I guess. Non-exist. Ah, what? Non-existent function in base nil. Okay, that makes sense. But what is nil? What is nil here? Well, depends. I think it's pretty good. Blueprint even for logic heavy things, because you can, I don't know, have you tried it? Because you can like create different blueprints, right? And even within one single blueprint you can kind of create areas where you lay down specific things. So I find it very good. The only thing that's really difficult to do with blueprints in my mind is authoritative multiplayer with a dedicated server. It's just an absolute mindfuck. I mean, it's mindfuck anyways, right? But if you need to, if you have this in the blueprint editor and like you don't know when you are on which path, basically, it's really difficult for me to understand this. So what's nil here? Request params. What is this way? I cannot introspect this. Also, why doesn't it not highlight it? It just need to, I think, need to restart it. Sometimes Godot loses syntax highlighting and the debugging capabilities. The problem with Unreal Engine is C++, and C++ is definitely not a good language other than for performance, and even there I would argue it's much better to use Rust. There are a lot, I mean, the AAA game development scene heavily depends on C++, and some people really don't understand why other people don't like C++. But it's just bollocks how much you have to invest in. I mean, it's so unproductive, right? And kind of dangerous to work on it. You're hoping for Unreal script. Dude, have you been around earlier? I don't know if you played with Unreal before, the current generation of Unreal, but like the Unreal that Unreal Tournament, for example, was built in, that had Unreal script, but they removed it. I think there is no Unreal script coming. There is a side project who got a Unreal Mega Grant who is doing .NET for or C# for Unreal, but I had no success with it. But it was also very early stages back then. So where was I? Null. There's some null thing. This is JSON serializable. Yes, that works. Ah, yeah. The big debugger was kind of broken. Ah, see, now I can see it. Info request parameters is null. Yeah, that's why. Oh, okay, something is off here. I really don't need the spinner to be spinning all the time. Login. Where's the stupid print? Oh, interesting. They're adding Unreal script back. Okay, makes some sense, I guess. Valid input parameters. Why is that not handled? Login scene. No. On API error. On server error. Why is this not handled? It's a code 400. Well, it should probably not be a one shot. Yeah, so an API error is being handled. So API error should be triggered here. Ah, I understand why this is. Because we don't wanna show progress anymore. That's why. And we also wanna show the login page. Duh. Login show. custom ID or encrypted request. Well, then let's use custom ID. And is there a GUID class? There is no GUID. Okay. Is there no GUID? No. GUID. Global Unique Identifier. Interesting. I don't. Is there a device name or something? Get instance ID is really a bad idea, because it's everything else but unique. I would say. Ha! Thank you. Why? What's this even node? Ooh, I don't know. Randomize. Isn't that global? Because if a library calls this sometime, like without you knowing, then you're doomed. Yeah, exactly. But it's global. This is not cool. This is not cool. Yeah. Really bad idea. It's funny because Hugo is a core contributor. Well, I'm just gonna, and it also does not need to be a node, but I'm just gonna copy this for simplicity's sake. I'm inclined to add this to godot-playfab. An util. Script. Great. let's call it UUID, make it a ref, no, object. And I cannot not enter class name here, but whatever. This is a really bad idea. Good, and so login with custom ID. Let's put in the custom ID here as a string. Quest params.custom, and then in the login scene. Oh, oops, that's not what I wanted. UUID dot v4. User not, no, oh, no, really, okay, good. So this is what setting this to false means. Okay, so exists. No, create user. Cool. So we can now add this also to the playfab client config. Oh god. The first block I can make. Goodbye. Idiot. Spell. Good, okay. Working on main for the win. Yeah. Good. I should really create a different branch. New branch. Okay. Good. So add login with custom ID request model. Good. Okay. Now we also want this to be, so I don't know if you saw what we did here. So on anon login pressed, what we do here is we generate a UUID v4 and say we wanna create a new account. Hey Lentius, I've been waiting for you all day. I wanted your input. Thankfully, Pavel came here as well. Yeah, I was wondering about that you didn't do the logo, but you know, I was about to pressure you about it, but then I thought you really don't have any obligation whatsoever, so no worries about it. Absolutely no worries. I can very much relate. So yeah, currently, but I really wanted you to be here, and you kind of just right, because I'm doing the stuff kind of for you, right? The stuff you wanted. I'm just working on anonymous login, and the next step would then be implementing a so the events telemetry, because I think that is the most. I also think it's the most important features, like anonymous login and collecting telemetry data, so you know what people are actually doing. Yes, and that's where I just stole the UID class from here, from Xelier, and so from them. But I need to open a bug report for them because they use randomize here, which is really bad. Because if you if you don't want this to happen, right? If you don't want the C changing every time you want to have a UID for all the rest of the random, then this is not good. I think the randomize function is really bad. Because I think just like in other languages, there should be instances of random generators. Right? I think it would probably be good to have a instantiatable random generator. Actually, I never checked. Maybe we have one. But I think it still depends on the base. Random, right? Not sure. You tell me, guys. Random number generator. Randomize. I don't know. Maybe this actually works on this particular random generator. Yeah, so is this one independent of the base seed? That's something I, at some point, need to explore, I guess. So, yeah, I was just explaining as you dropped in, Lencius. So, what we're doing here, login with custom ID. We give it an ID that we generate. And we say, yes, we want to create a new account if it does not exist yet. So if we always generate a new UUID, it will obviously never exist before. So here we actually want to check whether we have already written our playfab client config and store the ID there. If we did a custom login, custom ID login. So we need to see how this works. Think hard about it. So if we don't have a session, if we do have a session ticket, then we can use that one. But we would always need the custom ID. So we kind of have to store if we do have a session ID, we don't need to do a login at all. This is something I need to implement. Also, the other thing is when we have no email address and password, but this ID, so I can re-log in, right? So the flow would be I log in anonymously the very first time, so it will create an account, but it will not have a secret attached to it. So essentially anyone with the ID can log into this, which is fine because we're just collecting data, right? We're not doing anything. But as a game developer, you need to be very aware of this. And we can just save this here. So we probably need to have an ID object or something like that. This is I think that's what I'm gonna do for now. Because let's comment this here. So we essentially need the type, login type, that can either be a custom ID, email, or whatever, Steam, right? So when we look at the other things, like let's pick Steam for example. What kind of things do we need here? So we have the title ID, whether we created an account, play secret, no. using a Steam authentication ticket. Ah, here, a Steam ticket, okay. So we essentially always have some ticket or access token or wherever. Passcode issue ID. Identity token. Android device ID. Okay. I wonder how to abstract this, because I kind of want to save these informational pieces. I mean, at least I want to know save with which kind of authentication method the player previously used to log in with. So when on the next time the game is started, then I can just pick this up and pre-provide some values. On the other hand, this might just not be necessary, because right now we only need this for email and custom ID. So I'm just gonna have the login type and a login ID. I think that's what I'm gonna do here now. I mean, we can always change this. Oops, later. I could do get and setter to validate those, but I don't really care now. Okay. What am I doing? So here, let's check this out. So, playfab should have a config which has a login type. If login type ist gleich just do it like this. So just pasting the ID in here. Login ID and false here. And this should really be an else branch. And let's see if this works. Would be surprising, because then it would have worked on the first try. Which is weird. Actually delete this. Okay. And you know how developer says if it works on first try, something is probably off. Huh, told you so. It's not working. Just kinda good, I guess. So why was the login type bad? What was the login type? Didn't I check? Yeah, words of wisdom. Words of experience, I tell you that. What's the fucking login type? Thank you, debugger, for nothing. Ah, I actually want this ahead of time before I'm setting it. Ah, good point. I know why it's not working. I need to implement working. So, which means I need set get, set login ID, get login ID. Let's start with a set login ID. There's probably a more generic version of that, but hey. Set login type. Okay, we need to do the saving on the actual save config. And then this needs to have a default and the login type. Login none. Good. Yeah. What's wrong? Okay, let's try again. doodle. Try. Ah, there you go. Let's see if this is actually the same. It's not, which is, I think, a good sign. It is the same. Isn't it? No, it's not. Cool. It's a good sign because that means it gets overwritten with the new one. Okay, I think we just yeah, implemented anonymous login. Easy, isn't it? And you know, most of it is actually here. Good, good, good. Well, we will see, thank you, Linces, but we will see how brittle this is. I think it is very brittle, but it's good enough for now, I guess. Yeah, we don't need this. Yep, indeed. And you know, I want to make quick progress, right? You can always refactor later. I don't even have a huge plan right now, other than making use of Godot's features and use it in a way that's most natural to Godot. So I kind of need to see how the architecture evolves, right? There's no point in... This is also something I learned over time. I mean, I'm essentially a software developer slash architect slash site reliability engineer DevOps guy since 15 years. And what I really learned is, don't think about it too much. It will change anyways, right? I mean, obviously you should make plans, but also plan for not having a plan and having to throw everything out of the window in a matter of an instant, more or less, and rethinking it again, right? You have to be constantly evolving and rethinking things, right? Because the world, surprise, around will change a lot all the time, right? And you need to be able to react. So I think the most important thing is to not invest too much into things, because then it's hard to change them, because you're not only emotionally attached to it, but also yeah, kind of resource attached, because you've invested so much resources into it, whether it's work or money or both or whatever, right? And this is, I think, something that most game developers have understood, and it's completely different in other areas. But also in game development, when you look at how games are built and what types of games are built, I think it is, when you're building a single player game, right, architecture is often not so important, right, because you're building essentially a one-off product. If you're building a game that is dependent on live operations, basically, like think of a League of Legends, right? It constantly evolves, even on the client side, but primarily also on the server side, right? then you need to have a really good architecture. Because if you don't have it, then it costs you a shit ton of money to do this. And I've been there, right? When I joined my first games company, I joined a team for an online browser game. And it was so utterly unmaintainable for a team of like 10 people that we actually decided to throw it out the window and completely rewrite it, right? And we did kind of a solid architecture, but still it changed all the time, right? And with solid, I just not mean the solid principle, but also yeah, I just read it, but when I just said the solid word, I meant solid in concrete, solid, rock solid, kind of, not the architectural pattern, but using solid is certainly a part of it, right? But even then, we constantly changed and had to adapt, right? And yeah, it's been a challenge, right? Because you constantly have to change. And yeah, software architecture principles are great, but they're not set in stone, right? You always have to adapt and be pragmatic about it. This is something that took me a very, very long time. By the way, maybe some of you know the seniority curve. That's pretty interesting. How can I fast erase everything? Yeah, that's not what I wanted. Huh. Interesting, okay. Delete. So, the seniority curve is basically this. I know nothing, I know a lot, and I'm senior. So this is kind of how it goes. What did whiteboard do here? So, senior. So this is where you think you know everything, right? This is where regular or something. And here you just don't care anymore. Just like whatever makes you happy. And it works. Kind of meets the return on investment. Be very pragmatic. Okay, guys. Okay, folks. That's what I used to say. Make custom login, make a non-login work. It's been a massive pleasure. And will be. I actually. You will probably see more progress soon. I will continue to stream on Fridays, but I will probably also invest some more time in the coming weeks, probably during the week in my work time. Oh, that's great. It's great to hear. Yeah, actually, my colleague and Andreas are thinking about talking about this more. So, oh, by the way, everyone who joined in the meantime, welcome. Maybe as a closing, before I turn off the stream, summarize what I'm doing here, because some of you might not know. So that's usually what I always do on the start of the stream. So yeah, I love Godot, the Godot engine, because it's so easy to use and easy to learn. Great documentation. It's great for prototyping and great for actually making games. It has a lot of nice features like the scenes that can be composed of other scenes and stuff, right? It's just absolutely brilliant. And the signaling system is nice. And I think it's for non-mainstream programmers, I think it's also great. Or people that are not super deep programmers, right? And it has a great scripting language that I really enjoy working with. I didn't expect it that way, but I read the documentation, and the documentation said, go try GDScript, give it a chance. I did, and I loved it. So now, I figured there is a lot of indie developers using this, right? And even maybe some AAAs, right? Definitely Sonic Colors was using Godot. So there is interest in that, and I think what's really missing is a playfab integration, right? There's only the way to kind of use the plain C# SDK, which is just an API wrapper and doesn't really integrate into Godot, right? And yeah, maybe what playfab is really real quick. It's a backend as a service for games by Microsoft. Full disclosure, I work for Microsoft in my day job. I consult AAA and AA game studios in my day job technically on this and Azure technologies and how to build multiplayer and backend and stuff. So yeah, I also like to use this because it's free for up to 100,000 players, right? So this is perfect for indies, right? Gives you a lot of stats and insights. You can manage players and inventories and characters, right? And you can do stores and monetization, and it has add-ons for various platforms like Facebook, Apple, Steam, PlayStation, whatever, right? Xbox, Google, everything, right? So it's very easy to build kind of a backend for you, right? And particularly data collection is something that's super important, particularly if you're going into a beta phase, right? And you really want to see what parts of my game are players actually using, right? Or are not using, so I can improve on them or remove them, right? And you can also do experiments here, by the way. So you can see, is it better without or with the feature, or is the new version of the feature is that better for people, right? So what I am doing here is I want to make a great integration for playfab into Godot. This means that I want to have a GDScript native SDK, or that you can natively use with GDScript without having to use the C# version of Godot, because not everyone is using that. And I want to have a Godot editor integration to administer your game or integrate more deeply with the game, because you might have seen it here. You can upload like title data, so this is game balancing basically for the whole game or for specific players, and you can upload new store data for in-game stores and things like that, right? So that's what I want to provide. Yeah. So if you have any suggestions what I should be implementing, then please say so. Create an issue. Let me know what you want. You don't have to invest a lot of time. Just tell me what you want, what you think it is great, what would make this great better, and then we can talk about it. Yeah, do leave me a follow here on Twitch if you like what I'm doing, and also a star on GitHub if you like what I'm doing, because the more that are liking this, the more I have the chance of actually working on this, even in my work time. Right? Okay. Then watch this repo and my Twitter. I'm structured on Twitter, and this repo in particular for any updates during the week. And I will be seeing you next Friday at 1:30 p.m. Central European Time. Until then, have a great week and particularly a great weekend. And we hope we can live in peace very soon again in Europe. Take care.